Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. A court ruling in Paris on Tuesday could reshape France's presidential election before campaigning has even probably begun. Marine Le Pen's appeal against her conviction over the misuse of European Parliament funds will determine whether she remains the National Rally's candidate or whether her 30-year-old lieutenant, Bardella, becomes the face of France's far right heading into 2027. Joining us now to discuss it further is Benjamin Sibille, founder of the Collective for European Civic Service. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Good morning.
So, Benjamin, let's look at this. This verdict is quite an important one. It's due to take place later today on Tuesday, I think around 1:30 p.m. So tell us the scenarios. Why is this so consequential, and where could these decisions lead, not just the French rally, but France itself?
So the first thing is that it's a term of a long judiciary story, because Marine Le Pen has already been convicted. She appealed from this conviction. She is currently declared ineligible, so she cannot present herself in a national or even a local election. And if the conviction is today confirmed, she will not be able to run for the next presidential election, where she is still currently the head of the main far right, and according to polls, one of the favorites of this next election.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note as well, I mean, let's look at as well how this court will interpret this verdict as well. I mean, do you think on the one face of it, right, it's this absolute ban, like they will uphold it, she'll be banned, there'll potentially be also a prison term. Are there any sort of, let's say, lighter judgments that could happen today where she would still get off but be punished? Or how do you see it, the most realistic outcome with all this today?
It's difficult to say, but I would say that the first indictment from the initial court is a good clue of what she could get. She could, of course, still be totally released, but it's hard to believe at this stage. She could also have, like you say, a lighter sentence, and she could even have a sentence with an exception and not application of it. So it is still a possibility. I must say also that according to French law, when you are convicted of any crime, it is totally normal that you get out of your citizens' rights and you're not able to run for election. So it's not like an exceptional measure that would be taken for her. This is just what happens when you are convicted, especially for public money laundering or this kind of trials.
At the same time, I mean, if we're looking at these two individuals, both of the National Rally, but Le Pen herself, Marine Le Pen and Bardella, these are two rather different people. And just tell us a little bit more about the appeal of either of them and who stands potentially the higher chance of success if they do run for president. And I think that's coming up in April of next year.
You know, National Rally, or should I say Front National, because that's the original name, is now some kind of brand. So it's not so sure how important the actual candidate to run for them would be. Of course, it's a family brand. Marine Le Pen is above all the daughter of her father, was one of the founder and certainly the one who made famous this far-right movement since the end of World War II, and especially the end of the Algeria War, because that's the origin of this far-right movement. It would be quite a shock to see someone without the name Le Pen running for the party. That would be a first, for sure. Some commenters say that going out from this legacy, because the father of Marine Le Pen was several times convicted of anti-Semitism, convicted of racist slurs, and his daughter has tried for several years now to get a little bit away from this legacy. With a new family brand name, this could maybe this argument could be made a little bit better. Some say that Bardella is younger, so he's incarnating some kind of a renewal of the party. Of course, he's also someone who never had any kind of public responsibility, never had actually any kind of job, so without any experience. But he seems to be quite popular with the youngest voters of the far-right party of Front National.
Mm-hmm. But let's look at that scenario then in the case where, let's say, the verdict is such that she cannot run, that Marine Le Pen cannot run. She said that Jordan Bardella will become that front runner, will then represent the party. The party on various polls, if we're looking, seems to indicate it's going to do well. We're not entirely sure yet. I mean, it's still some time to the elections. But you talked about a different party, I think the appeal to the youth, etc. But him as an individual, what do we know of him? And he's young, yes, barely 30 years old, and she's been trying to change the party, hasn't she? So how appealing will this then be, though, to the mainstream? Will that be enough to sway enough voters ultimately?
But first, an interesting fact is, if you remember exactly this legal cases against Marine Le Pen, she's accused basically of having used the European money, the one you get when you are MEP, to actually enroll people who are not producing actual work inside of the European Parliament, but working for the party. Where it starts to get interesting is if you look at the people who have been accused of doing this kind of a fake job, you find one name, which is Jordan Bardella. So himself is currently also about to start his own legal and judicial path, being accused of also money laundering of the European Union. So even if Marine Le Pen is definitely convicted today, doesn't say that tomorrow we'll not see the same case built against Jordan Bardella. So it's an important element also to have in mind for today's decision.
Mm-hmm. But also, I mean, looking just also towards the future, one of the main things will also be his policies, or although Marine Le Pen's policies on critical European topics as well. I just want to get your sense of what that means for European defense. I mean, France has been spending more. President Macron has really much trying to take in the lead when it comes to defense, also cooperating more with the nuclear umbrella, etc., at least floating those ideas. What would either Le Pen or, if we look at Bardella presidency, mean for European defense?
I mean, Front National for a while used to sit in the European family of far-right parties, really with the most extreme. It was sitting for a long time with a party like the one from Viktor Orban, like the one like Confederacia and so on, like AfD also for a long time. But they tried in the last 2 years to take a step back. Initially, they were very much pro-Putin. There have been accusations of money transfer from the Russian government to this party, as it is the case for other far-right parties inside of the European Union. But they tried to tone it down because one of the most unpopular of their proposal, initial proposals, now it's still not clear if it will be run again, was the proposal of going out of the EU. This was something that was pleasing the hardest hardliner inside the party, like the original party, let's say, but which was, of course, making frightful the newcomers, the ones that are maybe more right-oriented and wouldn't like the economic chaos that a potential outing of the EU could create for France, but also for the rest of the EU. So initially the stand was very much going out of the EU, very much anti-immigration, but also besides anti let's say, multiracial France, but in the last years it has been toned down in order to go to a more traditional set of proposal. Now, of course, you never know what would be the actual policy once in power. I think that's always hard to say before. Would it be like a Meloni scenario where most of those proposals will be toned down, or will it be, on the contrary, a tendency to go further, especially if there is some economic turmoil accompanying a potential coming to power?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned some of those other leaders. I would look at Italy as well, Meloni, who's also more on the right, but has seemed to be, at least for these last indicative few years, very much also stable in terms of a lot of those agreements. I want to just ask you, because we do have that NATO summit as well kicking off today in Ankara, just get your sense of what you make of it. What will France's role be there? I mean, this will likely be President Macron's last NATO summit, leader summit. What will France get out of this? How is France going to play this? And what does the summit going to reveal to us, I mean, as it kicks off here on Tuesday?
You know, one of the main matter of this summit is also the current negotiation between the American and the Turkish, with some Israeli involvement about the transfer of new weaponry, namely the F-35. So probably in this summit would remain central two big international cases. First, the Middle East, because this crisis is still not settled. It seems that the Americans wants to go towards a peace path, but we also see some Israeli position trying probably to slower this movement. We know that Turkey traditionally would like the situation to calm down. So probably this would be at the center of the discussion. And on the back, you always have the situation with Ukraine. So French traditional position, I think we'll see three main things putting forward. One is still this matter of strategic autonomy of the EU. F-35 is a good example. As long as European armies are dependent, this is not the case of the French army, but of most others, dependent on American weapons transfer, it is hard to set an independent European policy. And of course, on those two big crises, the one in the Middle East and the one in Ukraine, we see still a strong, very strong disagreement between the European position and the American position, even if now President Trump seems to go a little bit closer from his allies, at least on the Middle East question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think also that strategic autonomy, that's what an idea that the French, President Macron has been floating a long time about who and where, how much Europe can do on its own, where those missiles or that equipment is purchased, it's European or non-European, so I'm sure that'll be discussed. Look, thanks so much for all that. We covered quite a bit there, and I really appreciate that. Benjamin Sibille there today with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.